Okay, you can begin.
Oh, what's that about? Good day, sir. Good day, class. This is Group 9. Today we will be doing Leadership, Power, and Influence, Chapter 12. Our group members consist of Alex, Simungal, Alea Austin, and myself, Carenton. The goal of this presentation is to explore the topic of leadership, power, and influence. It opens with a consideration of charismatic and transitional leadership, two leadership styles that rely strongly on a leader's personal characteristics as a source of power. We next examine what we mean by the terms power and influence, look at some sources and types of power, and outline ways leaders exercise power and influence through political activity. Finally, we briefly consider some ethical aspects of using power and influence. There are the six main topics that we'll be focused on today. After the presentation, you should be able to use power and politics to help accomplish important organizational goals. Practice aspects of charismatic leadership by pursuing a vision or idea that you care deeply about and want to share with others. Apply the concepts that distinguish transformational from transactional leadership. Identify types and sources of power in organizations and know how to increase power through political activity, as well as use the influence tactics of rational persuasion, friendliness, reciprocity, developing allies, and direct appeal, as well as scarcity. Transformational and charismatic leadership. What is transformational and charismatic leadership? These types of leadership roles is based on the leader's personal power rather than a position of authority given by an organization. Charismatic management, also known as leadership, is a form of professional guidance or management built on a foundation of strong communication skills, persuasiveness, and maybe even a little bit of charm to help them get the most out of everyone that works for them. They tend to be passionate, have charisma, and have strong convictions with a deep connection to the work that they're doing, in which inspires the same conviction in others. For example, we have Nelson Mandela. He was a politician, activist from South Africa who presided over the country from 1994 to 1999. We have transformational leadership. It is a theory of leadership when a leader's behavior influences their followers and inspires them to perform beyond their perceived capabilities. It inspires people to achieve unexpected or remarkable results. Transformational leaders work with teams of followers beyond their immediate self-interest to identify necessary change. They create a vision to guide the change through influence and inspiration. These changes are executed. Sorry, I can't really see. These changes are executed in tandem with committed group members and involves self-interest. This elevates the followers' ideals, maturity levels, and concerns for achievement. For example, we have Barack Obama. Obama demonstrated transformational leadership during his administration by initiating change and hope. Many Americans and people all over the world were moved by his ability to convey a vision of progress and harmony. How transformational leaders differ from transactional leaders. Transformational leaders tend to develop their followers into leaders. They give their followers more freedom to control their own behavior. Transformational leadership relies people around a mission and vision and defines the boundaries within which followers can operate in relative freedom to accomplish organization goals. They bring awareness of problems to their followers and help them find ways for change. This type of leadership elevates the concerns of followers from lower level physical needs such as for safety and security to higher level psychological needs as for self-esteem and self-actualization. These leaders inspire their followers to go beyond their own self-interest for the sake of the group. They inspire their followers to go beyond the limit to continue achieving their goals. Their followers admire them and has a high degree of trust in them to believe in the need for change and be willing to make personal sacrifices for the greater purpose. Transformational leadership paints a vision of a desired future state and communicates in a good way that makes the pain of change worth the effort. They must be able to find dream and goal that trumps the old one of the organization. Charismatic leadership. A charismatic leader is able to inspire and motivate those around him or her more than they usually do. Despite many obstacles and trials, this requires of them personal sacrifice. They are able to instill awe and submission into followers. These types of leaders tend to rise up in a crisis in either society or an organization. These leaders are able to ease the stress and anxiety of their followers, helping to bring a bit of calmness upon their situation.
right now. I'm feeling it too. The sense of helplessness, of hopelessness. I don't know how we even begin to process what might happen to us right now. But there are a few things that I do know. I know that this city has been through tough times before, and we have pulled through. We survived the undertaking. We survived the siege. We survived the outbreak. And somehow, some way, we will survive. A friend of mine told me that living in Star City takes a special kind of tenacity. But we do live here. Home. This is our home. It is our friends, our family, our lives. And we will not throw those precious gifts away by descending into chaos. We will look to each other for hope. We will cling to each other for strength. And if we do that, no matter what happens, then we can all stand here united.
Oh my God, it's here.
That's
That was an example of a charismatic leader, how he was able to inspire and motivate those around him as he stood up on the car and tried to persuade them into coming together to rise up in crisis. There are several characteristics that makes a charismatic leader, such as likableness, shared perspective, and idealized vision make leaders likable and an honorable hero worthy of identification and imitation. Trustworthiness, passionate advocacy by incurring great personal risk and cost. Relation to status quo, creates atmosphere of change. Future goals, idealized vision that is highly discrepant from status quo. Articulation, strong and inspirational articulation of vision and motivation to lead. Competence, uses unconventional means to transcend the existing order. Behavior, unconventional counter normative. Influence, transcends position. Personal power based on expertise and respect and admiration for the leader. Next, we have power, influence, and leadership. Power in leadership is the capacity to enforce action. Leadership power is defined as the influence that leaders can have over those who follow them. It persuades others to support the leader's efforts and do whatever they may ask. Influence is essential to leadership because it helps them establish relationships with their teams and maintain authority, which is the right to exercise power. There are several types of power in leadership. First, we have legitimate power. That is power that stems from a formal position or role within an organization. Example, manager or director. Its main aspect is for leaders to use legitimate power responsibly. Unethical leaders may use their authority to oppress or manipulate subordinates. For example, a CEO implementing a company-wide policy change based on their former position. Next, we have reward power. Power derived from the ability to give rewards, example, bonuses, promotions. Leaders must ensure that rewards are distributed fairly and based on merit. Unethical use of reward power might include favoritism or using rewards to manipulate behavior. For example, a sales manager offering bonuses to high-performing team members. Coercive power. Power based on the ability to punish or discipline others. It should be used sparingly and only when necessary. Overusing or abusing this power leads to fear and resentment. For example, a supervisor threatening demotion if deadlines are missed. Next, we have expert power. It is power that comes from a specialized knowledge or expertise in a particular field. Leaders with expert power must share their knowledge to empower others. Withholding information for personal gain or manipulating others with technical jargon or unethical. Example, a senior engineer who leads project decisions due to their technical expertise. Referent power. This is power based on the leader's ability to inspire loyalty, admiration, or respect from others. It should be built on an authentic relationships and integrity. Unethical leaders may exploit this power to manipulate followers for personal agendas. For example, a charismatic leader who motivates a team through their likable and trustworthy personality. How we respond to the use of power. Compliance. Following the directions of the person with power regardless of how much argument there is with that person's directions. Commitment. Adopting the leader's viewpoints and enthusiastically carrying out instructions. Resistance. The act of disobeying orders or deliberately avoiding carrying out instructions. Position power leads to both compliance and resistance, while personal power leads to commitment. Influence. Influence is the ability to shape behaviors and outcomes without force or formal authority. Influence is essential to leadership because it helps them establish relationships with their teams and maintain authority, which is the right to exercise power.
Leadership, in many ways, is about influence. It's about getting people to believe in what you believe in. I fundamentally believe that people want to follow if they believe. If they feel there's a connection between what you're selling and what they believe in themselves. And healthcare, of course, is an extraordinary place for that because, what do we do all the time is we're trying to keep people well. We're trying to help people to get sick. We're trying to save people, bring families back together, bring children into the world, take care of older people at the end of life. There is nothing more fundamental and human than that. But you've got to be able, as any leader, irrespective of what you're working in, you've got to be able to influence the behavior of people and get them to believe. My view is the first thing you do to make that happen is you've got to believe it yourself. If you're passionate yourself about what you believe in, it is serious. It's just not a job. It's something that's inherent in you, that this is you really care for. If people know that it is innate to your being and that you really care for this and that you're compassionate yourself and that you feel for it, it resonates. It gets people to connect. It's not a thing you're selling. It's a feeling you're selling. It's a belief system you're selling. It's about connections. It's also about humility. It's also about not taking yourself too seriously. And what I mean by that is, especially if you're a CEO, what is a CEO? You're part of a team. You're the captain, but you have to be a player. You're not a title. The captain who's on a team that is not a player and nobody respects, the title means nothing. I was fortunate to play sports. Games are won in the locker room. The feeling of camaraderie among players. That feeling is about, I'm for you, you're for me. We go down together, we go up together. We win together, we lose together. But if I'm the captain, quote unquote CEO in that locker room, and I am consider myself so important, I live in a big office and my desk is huge and I drive a big car and I live in a nice neighborhood and look where I got my degree from. And I meet people like this. Oh, look where I got my degree from. I'm top of my class. And quite frankly, I could care less. Are you a team player? Are you respected? Are you appreciated? Can you influence? Will people follow you? I mean, if you're going down the road and you look back and there's nobody following, you're not a leader. It's when you look back and you have followers. Leadership is about followership. If you have no followers, you're not a leader. You gain respect by your authenticity. Don't pretend. Be real. Accept your vulnerabilities. Accept your weaknesses. Know where your strengths are. And get people to belong. People want to belong to a cause. Engage people. Just don't direct them. Just don't talk to them. Engage them. It's a participatory process.
Get smarter faster with new videos every week.
All right. Okay. So due to unfortunate circumstance, I'll have to continue speaking on CRN's, which was influence. So I'll just go over to the slides now. Apologies for the pause in the presentation, so I just facing some technical difficulties. Okay, so what the video was trying to lead to is when we give off an influence, we try to show people what we believe in and help them follow, to not just say what we believe in, but also lead by example, showing them what we believe in, walking the talk basically. And that's an influence we can have on others. So influence, so I want to look at influence tactics used by leaders. So we have various tactics to influence their followers, which with some more ethical than others. These influence tactics can shape how leaders drive action and commitment and change. So the first one is rational persuasion. So the definition, a short definition, would be using logical arguments, data, or factual evidence to persuade others. So from the ethical aspect, it would be rational persuasion is a fair and ethical tactic, as it relies on presenting accurate information and representing others, respecting others' ability to make informed decisions. For example, Elon Musk and Tesla. The CEO of Tesla has employed rational persuasion by putting forth reasoned claims regarding the advantages of electric cars or for society and the environment. So in order to convince customers and investors to support Tesla's course, he frequently highlights the climate change and the necessity of sustainable transportation alternatives. So secondly, inspirational appeals. So a short definition appealing to emotions or ideal symbols. So for inspirational appeals, it's generally ethical as long as they are genuine and aim for collective benefit. Manipulating emotions are for personal gain, and that could be very unethical, as you are doing it for your own personal interest and not for your followers' interest. For example, and excuse if I pronounce this name wrong, Malala Yousafzai. Forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. The youngest recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize is a human rights and educational campaigner for girls. Her motivational speeches emphasizes on the value of equality, education, and resisting injustice. Malala's persistent dedication to her cause continues to inspire people worldwide, even in the face of violence and threats. So I'll look at the third one, consultation, involving others in the decision-making process, seeking their input before making decisions. Basically, seeing what others' thoughts are on the decision, making it a selfish decision, but a decision that everyone could agree on, one that we could come to terms with together, that all of us agree this could work for a business or for a group. So from the ethical aspect, consultation is ethical because it fosters collaboration and respects the contribution of others. For example, Steve Jobs. So Apple's co-founder Steve Jobs, well known for incorporating important stakeholders in the making process and employing consultation influence techniques before making important decisions on a product or strategies. Jobs would confer with Apple's designers, engineers, and marketers to obtain a variety of viewpoints to see where everyone's views are at, basically to see what everyone comes to an agreement with, what will be the best way for the company. So this strategy produced a lot of creative and popular devices like iPhone, iPad, and in addition to encouraging a sense of ownership among team members. So number 4 would be ingredient. So the definition would be using praise, flattery, or friendly with others. This can be unethical if used in a manipulative or used insincerely. If it's used for your own personal use to kind of control others around you for your interests and not for theirs. So from an ethical use, it involves genuine participation and acknowledgement. For example, Bill Clinton and political charm, former US President Bill Clinton was renowned for his skillful application and integration influence strategies. Because of his warm and engaging demeanor, he was able to establish personal connections with individuals and make them feel important and cherished. He would try to connect with others, make them feel like, their opinion matters. So that's how we could influence others, by making them feel like their voice is heard. He was able to establish relationships and win support from a variety of people because of his capacity to remember names, to demonstrate genuine interest in others, and strike up small talk. Personal appeals, which would be the 5th one. It's basically the small definition, asking something based on this tactic could be used in it could be used ethical if used sparingly, and if it doesn't exploit personal relationships. For instance, Barack Obama, by establishing a personal and emotional connection with people, the former US President Barack Obama successfully used personal appeal by influencing techniques. Obama was able to establish rapport and trust with large audience by sharing his personal tales. revoking empathy, and inspiring hope. Obama was able to forge close bonds with people and communities by being vulnerable and genuine, which encouraged and support and devotion. So moving on to number 6 is exchange. So a small definition will be offering favors, rewards, or resources in exchange for compliance or support. While exchange should be ethical when transparent or unfair, it becomes unethical when it turns into forgive me a sec, it's just struggling. It turns into okay, I'll just move on for now because of the text. All right, so a quick example of this would be Jeff Bezos. In business transactions, the Amazon founder, Jeff Bezos, used exchange influence strategies. So Amazon's development and success may be attributed in part of to a large part to Bezos' strategic approach to negotiations, which includes value-driven exchanges and written solutions. Bezos has made Amazon a major player in e-commerce in the e-commerce sector by concentrating on on this factor and advantageous contracts, cultivating enduring bonds with suppliers, consumers, and stakeholders. Number 7, which would be coalition tactics. Gaining the support of others to build pressure and ethically, this could be ethical based on if based on shared goals, but unethically, it could be unethical if they are used to bully or pressure someone unfairly. So, for example, Gandhi, the leader of India's independence movement. So Gandhi used this influence strategy to rally a various number of people in peaceful opposition to British colonial control, including intel intellectuals, religious leaders, and peasants. Gandhi demonstrated his capacity to bring people from many backgrounds together in a common fight for independence, for social justice, by emphasizing grassroots organizing and coalition building through civil disobedience initiatives like the sword march and the boycotts. Number 8, which would be pressure. So it would be like using demands and threats or intimidation to get compliance, like threatening someone in order to get what you want out of them. So pressure tactics are often not unethical because it relies mainly on fear rather than mutual respect or trust. It relies mainly on making whoever you're opposing, whoever you want to agree and follow what you're following. It relies on making them feel fearful of what would happen if they don't follow you or they choose to go an opposite way. So an example would be Margaret Thatcher. So under her forceful leadership style, the former British Prime Minister employed pressure influence methods. Her use of pressure to accomplish her political goals was demonstrated by her unyielding stand on issues and her readiness to take on opposition directly. She successfully used pressure to influence government choices, advancing her agenda by resolute in the face of difficulties and demonstrating strong leadership. So the ninth and final influence tactic would be legit legitimating tactics. So claiming authority by referencing rules, policies, or traditions. So this could be ethical when it's used based on a transparent and fair authority. It could be unethical if used to justify questionable actions. So for instance, Martin Luther King, in his fight for social justice and racial equality, well known as the civil rights activist Martin Luther King, used this influence strategy by using moral authority and ethical precepts. King used non King's use of nonviolent resistance, which was based on Christian principles, and Gandhi's teachings helped the civil rights move by portraying it as a fight for equality before the law and a moral obligation. So ethical use of power and influence in leadership. So these are these this is a small list of it. So be aware of the impact their power has on others. Ethical leaders use their power to uplift and empower and protect their followers rather than dominate or exploit. So we must be aware of what we teach our followers, what we're leading them into, hoping that it's what we're using is something that's able to uplift them, to guide them correctly. Unethical power could lead to manipulation and fear, diminish trust within an organization. Influence with integrity. Ethical influence is about persuasion, collaboration, and shared purpose. Leaders should avoid manipulative tactics and focus on building trust instead. Ethical power emphasizes fairness, transparency, and accountability. So also respecting autonomy. Ethical leaders respect autonomy and freedom of others. They don't coerce or manipulate, but instead they guide and inspire others towards mutually beneficial goals. So leaders should regularly access how assess how their power and influence is being used, ensuring that they align with their moral and ethical standards, basically walking the talk, practicing what you're preaching to others, what you're trying to teach others and motivate them into doing. Ensure what you're doing, be an example to them, and also look at your followers, make sure you're leading them the right way and not manipulating them, but instead inspiring them, teaching them. So here's some strategies of using power and influence ethically. So number one, they understand their own sources of power and how they impact others. Number two, promoting empowerment, the use of power to enable others to succeed. Reward good performance fairly and provide resources for growth. Number three, being transparent, openly communicate decisions and rational rational behind them and to build trust. Number four, foster ethical dialogue. create an environment where ethical concerns around power and influence can be discussed without fear of retribution. Basically, making people feel comfortable to come out with concerns and comfortably be able to talk without being shamed for it or being feared that someone will get back at them for it. So, and number five, encourage shared leadership. So basically distributing power by empowering team members, sharing decision-making responsibilities, building leadership capacity in others. So this to me is one of the most important aspects of leadership because this is how we can use our experience to help build other relations, other leaders coming up, rising up, and learning to be leaders, passing on what we know to them. So I want to quickly look also at the role of dependency and control over resources. Those who have control over something people want or need gains power. One of the key aspects of power is that it is a function of dependence that is greater than in, for instance, greater individual B's dependence on individual A, the greater power A will have over B. People in organizations as elsewhere have power because of other people depending on them for information, resources, cooperation, and so forth. So there are more people who depend on someone, the greater that person's power. Control over resources. So dependency within organizations is related to a person's control over resources. So resources include such things as jobs, rewards, financial support, expertise, knowledge, materials, information, and time, etc. So now as we look at sources of leader power in an organization, I'll pass it on to Aliyah. So this evening, so I have to play a recording of her presentation as well.
Alex, we're not hearing anything if you're playing it. Try unmuting your mic and see if that's actually what's causing it.
For like 2 seconds, so get the video up and running.
Go ahead, fix it.
Okay, Alex, we seeing you trying to talk, but we're not hearing you.
Can you?
Yeah, a bit there now.
Yeah, I have. Forgive me, so I have internet difficulties, so it severely affected the
Yeah,
presentation. Right.
I realize that. Are you able
All
to
right. So
continue?
yeah, I'm just waiting for the video to roll back, and I should be able to continue.
All right.
All right, so I get to be back up and running, so I'll be sharing my screen again now.
Good.
Hi, I'm Alia Austin of Presentation 9. Sources of leader power in an organization. An understanding of dependency and control over resources provides the foundation for examining several sources of leader power in organizations. The 5 types of power we discussed earlier are derived from either formal position or the leader's personal qualities. These sources provide a basis for much of a leader's influence. In organizations, however, additional sources of power and influence have been identified. The strategic contingencies theory identifies power sources not linked to the specific person or position, but to the role the leader plays in the overall functioning of the organization. 4 strategic contingencies that affect leader power in organizations. Number 1, interdepartmental dependency. Number 2, control over information. Number 3, organizational centrality. And number 4, coping with uncertainty. Interdepartmental dependency. One key source of leader power in many organizations is interdepartmental dependency. Materials, resources, and information may flow between departments in one direction. In such cases, leaders in the department receiving resources will have less power than those in the department that provides them. For example, consider the case of leaders at a cigarette factory. One might expect that the production department would be more powerful than the maintenance department. But this was not the case in a cigarette plant near Paris. So, interdepartmental dependency simply means that if leaders gain power, their role or skills cannot be easily replaced. So when the tasks a leader performs are unique and difficult for others to take over, a leader's power simply grows. Number 2, control over information. Despite the trend towards empowerment and a broader information sharing, the fact remains that some people will almost always have access to more information than others. Control over information, which involves both access to information and control over how and to whom it is distributed, is an important source of power for leaders. So, by managing resources, a leader can influence actions of others who depend on these resources to fulfill their roles. So, on the other hand, this can create dependency, making it easier for the leader to exert influence. Organizational centrality. Centrality reflects a leader's or a department's role in the primary activity of an organization. One measure of centrality is the extent to which the work of the leader's department affects the final output of the organization. At a company such as Intel, which is heavily technology oriented, engineers have a high degree of power because the organization depends on them to maintain the technical superiority of its products. So, leaders who occupy central to the functioning of the organization, as it rightfully said, would hold more power. Coping with uncertainty. The environment can change swiftly and create uncertainty and complexity for leaders. In the face of uncertainty, little information is available to leaders on appropriate courses of action. Leaders in departments that cope well with this uncertainty will increase their power. So, leaders who can manage or reduce uncertainty within the organization, as the slide said, would gain more power. So organizations constantly face uncertainty, whether
Alex, we seem to have lost
due
the
to
audio again.
market changes or new technologies or even unexpected change.
Or has the recording
Challenges,
paused?
sorry. And a leader who can help an organization navigate these uncertainties effectively, whether maybe by planning, making decisions, or strategizing, will be seen as essential, increasing their influence and authority. Increasing power through political activity. Another aspect of power is that it is not enough to be performing central activities or coping with organizational uncertainties. One's effort
Hello, Alex?
People want to increase their power.
Yes, sir, you were speaking.
Hi, Alex. Not hearing you.
Hold on, I can't hear. Yeah, could you speak now? Sir?
Hi, Alex.
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing you try to turn on your something's up. We're not hearing you at all, and we're not
You're not
hearing the
hearing
recording that you're
you
playing.
wasn't hearing anything the whole time? Okay. All right. Let's see if I can fix it. Okay, I turned back on the
Still not
I
hearing you.
toggle back on the stuff to hear the switch.
Make sure their activities are visible and appreciated by others. Acquiring and using power is largely a political process.
Right. So we're still not hearing anything from you. I don't know if I'm alone in this. Is anybody else hearing anything?
So I'm hearing him.
I
I'm
was
hearing him.
hearing so I was hearing it a little loud, but yeah, again the
Okay.
feedback a little echo, but I was hearing.
Oh, okay. So maybe it might be on my end then. All right. Go ahead, Alex, and finish up. Hopefully the recording would have picked up the audio.
So increasing power through political activity involves the interpersonal influence and strategic behaviors to build, support, gain control over resources, and enhance one's influence within an organization. Political power can also help shape the relationships, control access to information, and create a positive reputation that benefits one's authority and decision-making power. So, two strategies of increasing power through political influence could be building alliances and network. This simply means by forming alliances with influential people within the organization, individuals can gain support for their ideas and initiatives. This involves networking with both your peers and higher level leaders to create a web for supporters. And another strategy can also be controlling information. So by selectively sharing information, an individual can shape others' understanding of situations or frame issues in ways that align with their own interests. What is politics? Politics are activities to acquire, develop, and use power and other resources to obtain desired future outcomes when there is uncertainty or disagreement about choices. Politically skillful leaders strive to understand others' viewpoints, needs, desires, and goals and use their understanding to influence people to act in ways that help the leader accomplish his or her goals for the team or organization. How can politics increase power? Understanding your organization's political landscape. So by organizing politics, organizational politics consists of the steps professionals take to improve personal or organizational initiatives. Understanding an organization's political terrain is essential to any leader hoping to leverage power to affect change. According to the Harvard Business Review, study shows that individuals with political skills tend to do better in gaining more personal power as well as managing stress and job demands than their politically naive counterparts. They also have a greater impact on organizational outcomes. Properly diagnosing your organization's political landscape starts with clearly mapping its power dynamics. This is often done through power mapping. Once the map is complete, it should illustrate several organizational factors that are useful to a position of power, including a comprehensive list of people's roles within the organization's readiness for change, what roles carry the most decision-making power for certain changes, the sources of power you can collaborate or draw from, and whose support is needed for sustainable change. Now, here is a short video on organizational politics.
Hi, folks. I'm Dr. Joseph Reed. I want to talk with you about organizational politics. Politics can be a dirty word. I often ask participants in my workshops to free associate with the phrase organizational politics. And they say things like hidden agendas, sucking up, dirty, manipulation. There's not a lot of love out there for organizational politics. And if you subscribe to some of those same beliefs, you're probably limiting your effectiveness. Let me tell you why. Your mindset, the beliefs you hold, dramatically affect your behaviors. If you operate with a negative mindset about organizational politics, you're going to try to ignore them. You'll try to avoid the political process. You'll approach your job as if you operate within a logical, rational organizational system. Big mistake. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean that it's not there. Have you ever tried ignoring gravity? It can be really painful. Organizations aren't computers. They're human systems. We may do our best to operate logically and rationally, but we do so within the context of our emotions, our perceptions, our values, and our beliefs. And you can't just depend on a good idea making it through the organization only on the strength of its own merit. It may, but how many times have you had a good idea that seemed to fall on deaf ears? Or maybe it got off on the right foot and then ran up against a brick wall of opposition later in the process. Friends, you need to recognize a fact of life. Organizational politics are real and they have an impact. So I encourage you to improve your effectiveness, get more done, and have a more powerful impact on your organization by becoming actively involved in the political dynamic in a positive way. Wouldn't it be nice to have more of an impact, to have more influence, to have your voice heard? To positively participate in the political process, number one, have a positive mindset. Politics aren't inherently bad. They're just the way that power and interests come together to affect the decisions that an organization makes and the actions that it takes. Number two, be sensitive to the way that the organization works and how people within it function. Who are your stakeholders? Who does have power? Work to build coalitions and alliances, develop relationships. Actively work to build your credibility. Number three, cultivate influence. And recognize that influence involves the appropriate use of three things: power, communication, and strategy. So be flexible, match your approach to the situation and the person you're trying to influence. Fourth, to be positive, you need to know what ethical means to you, and you need to follow your principles. It's very easy in the heat of the moment to rationalize actions that deviate from what we know is right. Situational ethics can be a very slippery slope. So always put the good of the organization first. You can't do wrong by doing right. Work towards the greater good. Finally, take an active role in the political process. See it as part of your responsibilities to yourself. And if you lead other people to your team, don't let politics happen to you or happen to your team. You can't be an effective leader in an organization if you aren't willing to have a positive impact on its politics.
Thank you, and I now hand over to Alec.
Okay, so as I continue from where Aliyah left off, now I'm going to be looking at tactics for asserting leader dominance. So does anyone have an idea by chance of what a dominant leader is? Anyone? Nobody? My mic is on, right? Okay, so I'll play a quick I believe, a 1 minute long video, if I'm not mistaken, just to give an idea of what a dominant leader should be.
What is a dominant leader? A dominant leader is someone who takes charge and makes.
Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, so I see technical difficulties, but it would be what a dominant leader. So what I would envision a dominant leader being is someone that takes charge, someone that asserts dominance over others and tries to, I don't want to use the word push, but he tries to show others his goal, his view, what he's trying to accomplish, what he follows. And he would take dominance over his followers and show them and basically take charge of the situation to say, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to follow, taking dominance and dominion in a sense, to take charge of what's going on in your group of followers, to say, this is what we need to do. So as I move on to look at tactics of asserting leader dominance, the next issue is how leaders use their power to implement decisions, facilitating changes, and pursuing organizational goals. That is, leaders use power and influences others, which requires both skill and willingness. Much influence is interpersonal and one-to-one. This is a social influence which involves collations, rewards, inspiration. Other influence such as board appeal, such as to influence the organization as a whole or to influence those outside the organization. But however, not all attempts to use power results in actual influence. So here are 7 short principles of asserting leader influence. So number 1, using rational persuasion, using facts, data, logical arguments to persuade others to the proposed idea or request. This is one of the best ways to complete a task or accomplish a desired goal, because you show factual, hard proof of what you're doing, what you're following, what you're trying to succeed, and you show factual data to others to help persuade them to follow in what you are doing as well. Number 2, make people like you. As a leader, it's easier to sorry. It's easier and beneficial to get acceptance of someone that likes you more than someone who dislikes you. This is why it's so important to set a good example when influencing others, being respectful to people's decisions, trying to come to a peaceful agreement on certain issues. Number three, rely on the rule of reciprocity. Forgive me for the pronunciation. Recalling the decision of dependency and how leaders gain power by having something that others value. Number four, developing allies. The third point also plays an important role in developing networks of allies, people who can help the leader accomplish his or her goals. And number five, ask for what you want. So another way to influence others is to make a direct appeal by being clear about what you want, what you're asking for. If leaders don't ask, they don't receive. So it's about being clear on what you want to follow, what it is you're trying to receive. Being clear with your followers or who you want to follow them to help them get an idea so they could understand, okay, this is what you're doing, what you're following. And number seven, extend formal authority with expertise and credibility. The final principle for asserting influence is the leader's legitimate authority in the organization. Legitimate authorities are in a position to be particularly influential. Right. And as I move on to the final point, which I'll try to close off quickly, ethical consideration and ethical consideration in using power and politics. So when we look at this, we look at this in I'll look at it with these four short points. So leadership is the ability to get people to do what they don't want to do and like it. The ability to persuade them and convince them to do something they originally didn't want to do. Being a leader is a chance to use influence and authority to achieve significant organizational objectives. Personalized leaders tend to be impulsive, self-centered, and use their position of authority more of their own needs and interests than this for the sake of the company. Basically, selfish and manipulative decisions for their own self-benefit. Socialized leaders use their influence to further greater objectives that will benefit others and the company overall. So here are a few short guidelines for ethical action. This is the action consistent with organization's goals? Is the action consistent with organization's goals rather than being self-motivated by pure self-interest? Does the action respect the rights of individuals and groups affected by it? Does the action meet the standards of fairness and equity? Would you wish others to behave the same way in action affected by you? When being in a leadership position, it's possible to be ethical when using power and politics. You can build long-term productive relationships that achieve important goals and benefit the entire team or organization. So these small questions is questions we should ask ourselves daily as being a leader to keep ourselves in check to make sure what we're doing is right. Whether or not the leader actually withholds the resources partially in response to pressures from courts, many organizations are developing policies and procedures to protect individuals from sexual harassment on the job and offer mechanisms for reporting complaints. Sexual harassment is not just unethical, it's illegal, and it's a clear abuse of power. However, there are many other situations in organizations that are not so clear cut, and leaders may sometimes have difficulty differentiating ethical from unethical uses of power and politics. So as this presentation, a quick summary would be that this chapter gave us a bit of a more clear insight on the role of power and politics and influence, where it comes in terms of leadership, how it affects it. It focused a lot on leadership styles such as charismatic, transformational. Charismatic leaders could be used to inspire through emotional connections and vision, while transformational leaders encourage followers to prioritize the collective good. When we looked at power, it was the ability to influence a leader's followers and can be able to lead compliance, resistance, commitments. Key power types include legitimate, reward, expert, referent, coercive. Power. Effective use of power fosters compliance, while coercive power may lead to resistance. Leaders can enhance their power through political activities and by managing resources and alliances. Several principles for influence consist of rational persuasion, friendliness, reciprocity, pronounce that wrong, sorry, development, direct appeal, scarcity, and formal authority. The chapter emphasizes on ethical leadership, advocating for the respectful and fair use of power to align with organizational goals and build productive relationships. So I want to thank everyone in the class on behalf of my group and myself for listening, for enduring this long presentation. I want to thank everyone for enduring with the technical difficulties. I hope everyone learned something from the presentation. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. And this is also a small list of citations from where we got information from. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.